So I'm going to read what I wrote. I know I only have 10 minutes, so I'm going to try and be very brief. So I'm going to try and hold it to that. I know I may go a few seconds over,
That's
but
all
I
right.
hope you indulge me. I'm just going to read what I wrote. So I hope you all enjoy this and learn a little bit and feel a little bit of what I feel about my kids. My name is Bonnie Henthorne. Many of you may know me already, along with a group of concerned parents who have appeared with me. I have 2 children, one in 5th grade and one in 8th grade. Over the past 3 or 4 years, I've come to the realization that I had to become much more involved in my children's education, as they seem to be getting lost in the shuffle. I was working full-time and spending hours upon hours looking for resources online to help my child with the new math, starting in about 2nd grade, about 3 or 4 years ago. As the school couldn't seem to point me in the right direction, I chose to enroll my child at Sylvan Learning Center, as by their testing she was 2 years behind in both reading and math, although she was still a B student. After completing only 36 hours of instruction and getting her up to speed in reading, my family decided I would give up my career. I was a manager of a successful research and publication company for 12 years in order to do what I thought was my most important job, taking care of my kids and being more involved in their education. Public school alone was just not getting the job done, to be blunt. First, I want to say that my talk today is not about the teachers. It's not about the school. It's not about Democrat, Republican, conservative, or liberal. As a matter of fact, I can commend the 5th grade teachers at Borman, both Mrs. Miller and Mrs. Forby. They're both here tonight. Along with other teachers in the system, I see Mrs. Folger. I had Mrs. Folger in 4th grade. My son also had her. Many of these teachers are of quality caliber. This talk is about what they are being made to teach by the powers that be. My group comes to you tonight to raise our concerns over Common Core, including the curriculum, parental rights and privacy issues, and the general negative direction of education. Most of the parents here have concerns about math, so I'll start there. The curriculum stage, we are teaching strategies in order to foster a more in-depth understanding of basic concepts. Standard algorithms are not being taught as a strategy, at least not in 4th grade, but I'm told that they may be taught in 5th grade, but of course after these multiple strategies are taught. I've attached some examples of these strategies to the presentation along at the back. These new strategies are confusing and cumbersome, at least for my daughter, and for most children, and there are many more computations needed in order to get the correct answer, thus more room for error. The strategies are also just processes. It should be noted that you can follow a process, but never really know why you're doing it. So to falsely call these strategies, I feel is misleading. The kids cannot remember all the steps. It's just much easier and faster and more accurate for my 5th grader to do it the whole way. Math is an exact science, the purpose of which is to get the correct answer, not to draw a picture or write to explain. To me, that would be art of creative writing. 2 + 2 always has been and always will be 4. Teaching fuzzy math is no way to excel. Using math, and lots of it, is the way to excel in math. I can testify from personal experience that my Jordan is about 2 years behind where Eli was in 5th grade. Really, we are in 5th grade and we're still learning the basics of addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. In 5th grade, she should already know all that and have moved on to honing and practicing those skills. Plus, she should be learning more complex concepts and number sense. I'm afraid for Jordan to move on to middle school because she's not prepared. But then I'm even more afraid when I think of her getting to middle school in 6th grade and being made to do the same concepts she did in 5th with just bigger numbers. Never really progressing into more complex concepts, just bigger numbers and the same basis. I would also draw your attention to an article that was attached to the end of this presentation as well, written by Dr. James Milgram, professor of math at Stanford University, and who is also on the validation committee for Common Core. In short, he does not support it and considers it the further dumbing down plan. Moving along to ELA, what we call English Language Arts, reading, spelling, all that stuff is lumped in together now. The types of reading material that are being accepted through Common Core in other states are chilling, to say the least. I would call your attention to the excerpts I've attached from the book entitled The Bluest Eye. Not much needs to be said here. I only have 10 minutes. Just read the excerpts when you go home in private, because they are very explicit sexually and discuss illegal sexual behavior. Along with other normal classic literature like Pride and Prejudice, this piece is listed as exemplary reading for 11th and 12th graders under the Common Core suggested list. Although this book is not yet in our libraries, I checked, it is on the reading list for Common Core in other states. And because we are part of Common Core and the SBAC, when will this be forced upon our children through the back door? Another example is the Weekly Reader. We've used Weekly Readers for years. This publication now promotes numerous social and political agendas as fact hidden within its pages of informational text. It's Common Core. Another bothersome quality of Common Core is all the work that's being done in groups. At this point, Common Core is only being implemented in math and ELA, non-controversial subjects. But social studies and science are already being prepared and are soon to come. Science, and especially social studies, are subjects where things can become quite the debate. Imagine having a group of 4 children discussing a controversial social studies topic like the effects of progressivism on the United States. 3 children think one way, 1 child has a different opinion. Do you really think in all these groups that 1 child is going to feel comfortable standing up for what they believe? There are multiple research studies that show definitive proof that most children will just go along with the crowd. As a matter of fact, when test subjects are even adults, many adults will just follow along with the crowd as well. We teach our children to resist peer pressure regarding drugs and alcohol, but then we put them in groups and encourage them to go along with the group in terms of social norms, discussion, and topics that may be controversial. This teaches dependence, not independence. I call your attention to this slide for those of you who have copies. I'm on slide number 6. I have a definition listed of groupthink. That's what they call this type of interaction with children. I want to call your attention most specifically to the words in red bold text. Loss of individual creativity, uniqueness, and independent thinking. Provides a deviant decision-making outcome. That definition is from Wikipedia. Some of you older people might not think Wikipedia is a good resource, so I've looked up good old Merriam-Webster. We can all trust them, right? Merriam-Webster, again, calling your attention to the words in red text. Self-deception, forced manufacture of consent and conformity. Group values and ethics. Teaching, or rather not teaching, independent thought teaches our children that it's somehow wrong to have opinions that are not mainstream. To just go along with the crowd is very dangerous. This is not how I want my children to learn to evaluate information. Neither of these definitions are positive and should not be used in education. The obvious answer to curriculum issues is, of course, homeschooling. I, as well as other parents, have seriously considered and are still considering homeschooling. But how long will it be until the powers that be place similar requirements on homeschooling families? Some experts claim that those that homeschool will eventually be required to take Common Core assessments and will have to submit to additional requirements of Common Core, like the data tracking that the constitutional advocate spoke of earlier. It's like Common Core needs to have total control of education, public, private, and individual. Moving away from the curricula, I know Mrs. Dacklany had mentioned that if I had problems with the curriculum, I should address it to Susan Boyle. So that, we could do that at some point. That's pretty much all of the curriculum part. I'm very concerned about the federal versus local control of education. I believe the constitutional advocates have already covered this, so I won't waste time with it. I mention it here just so that you, as our board, are aware that our constituents are also concerned about this as well. With regard to parental rights, over the past several years, we've seen continuous encroachment. I don't know if any of you parents here have noticed that at all. There are numerous examples that I could share, but here's just one. I visited Jordan's 4th grade classroom to drop off some school supplies last year that I had donated. They sent a letter home saying, kids don't have stuff. I went in to donate school supplies. When I got there, the kids were leaving the school on a bus. I didn't remember hearing that they were going anywhere. When I asked where they were going, I was told they were going to an assembly at the middle school. I asked what the topic was. The teacher wasn't sure. Well, I didn't think anything of it. I trusted. I figured they know what they're doing. Until Jordan came home and innocently asked me what rape was. Needless to say, I was dumbfounded and blindsided. Again, when I asked the question why, I didn't know they were going to be toted to the middle school to discuss sexting. I was told they didn't have to tell me. through whatever regulation that might be. So apparently, parents, the kids can take your child anywhere in the county without your knowledge. Surprise! What if I had had an emergency and needed to get Jordan right now? I didn't even know she had left the school. With regard to privacy, the U.S. Department of Education is suggesting that the SLDS, spoken by the constitutional advocates, will eventually be able to track over 400 pieces of data on my children and our families, from K through C, they call it, or from kindergarten through career. How will my child's data, why would it need to be accessed by the Department of Health and Human Services? That's a federal agency under the guise of education research. Why is it necessary to track her through career or Eli, either one of them? Who needs to have my child's biometric and psychometric data? Go online and figure out what those things are. What educational research requires that my family's political, religious, social views and values be shared with anyone? The school, the state, the government, DHHS, or workforce agencies. How will that information be kept private? The constitutional advocates talked a little bit about that through FERPA. We're just supposed to trust, right? The SLDS will be linked to all these agencies who we are supposed to trust are going to guard that information. The IRS and NSA are perfect examples of how well we can trust officials to look out for our personal data. And last, but certainly not least, as I've alluded to earlier, I'm concerned about the overall direction of education. I was even more alarmed when I visited the school's website to see the mission statement and core beliefs, which I've included some of on the slide. Those of you who have a copy, in the slide there's some red text that I've highlighted. The text that I highlighted, so you all that don't have those, ethical behaviors and attitudes needed to be successful citizens in the 21st century economy. One of the core beliefs is we want the kids to succeed in a democratic 21st century global community. I know that we've had those for some time, but I do not recall them reading quite like this. Perhaps they did and I just didn't notice, but now I've noticed and I think other parents should too. These are very troubling to me. We are not a part of a democratic 21st century world community. That is a political and social agenda that does not belong in education. We live in the United States of America, a constitutional republic, and no matter how many thousands of times they say on TV and in the news that we are the greatest democracy, it doesn't make it true. I've included here in the PowerPoint for you all, I'm sure you know what a democracy and a constitutional republic are, but just to refresh your memory, I've attached two detailed descriptions of those two things. The first definition is of a democracy, the second is of a constitutional republic. Both definitions come from a nonprofit, nonpartisan group, Basics Project Organization. In the interest of time, I suggest you read these outside of this meeting. Let's just think about that a little bit. A democratic global community. What might that look like? Do I really want my child to be a part of that? Thinking outside the box here, since we're trying to teach our kids critical thinking, my critical thinking tells me, when I learn the actual real definition of democracy and think about what that might look like, do we really want our children to be a part of that? I'd like to read a couple of quotes, one from Alexander Hamilton about democracy and one from Thomas Jefferson regarding ignorance. Alexander Hamilton said that a pure democracy, if it were practicable, would be the most perfect government. Experience has proved that no position is more false than this. The ancient democracies in which the people themselves deliberated never possessed one good teacher of government. Their very character was tyranny and their figure equality. And from Thomas Jefferson regarding ignorance. If a nation expects to be ignorant and free in a state of civilization, it expects what never was and never will be. I'm almost finished. Once again, reviewing the mission statement, we find it is the school's job to teach the proper attitudes and ethics for a world community. I took the liberty to look up these words, and you'll see the definitions of those words on your slides, on slide number 14. Why would the school be responsible for teaching my child how to feel about anything? And in terms of ethics, why would the school in turn be responsible for teaching my child what is morally good and bad? Remember to check out the excerpts from The Bluest Eyes. These will be on my Facebook page, so you can look at these resources as well. Some schools believe it's okay to give this material to children in 11th and 12th grade, which leads me to the definition for indoctrination. To teach someone to fully accept the opinions and beliefs of a particular group and to not consider other ideas, opinions, or beliefs. Once again, I call your attention to groupthink when we discussed earlier. Do we really want a bureaucrat at the U.S. Department of Education telling our children what to feel, think, and deem appropriate? The U.S. and State Department of Education are unelected and unaccountable people. If they were accountable, someone should have done something about them long ago, since they've been telling us that education has been down the tubes for 2 decades. We need to think carefully about what education is supposed to be. It's not supposed to feed our children into the corporate machine just to get a job. That's how China does it. It's supposed to be about knowledge, learning to think for yourself, independence, and self-sufficiency. The United States became a great nation by doing what we thought was right, not by doing what everyone else is doing. When the U.S. was really great was before departments of education started mandating this and mandating that about what teachers had to do. We have made it so teachers will have no flexibility in their classroom to teach. Under Common Core, it's suggested that only 15% of the curriculum will be provided by participating states. 15% is a lot, isn't it? The rest will be taught directly through Common Core just so our kids can score right on assessments. What is the local role? The Board of Education, you are elected officials for education locally, and we want you to be aware of our concerns about the condition our route education is taking. We should no longer be blindly following what we are told. We should be asking questions, and we should be deciding for ourselves and taking action accordingly. We are asking that the local Board of Education make the State Board of Education aware by resolution or whatever means necessary, I'm not sure what process or what power you have, of the growing opposition of the parents in your community opposed to Common Core and everything that it entails. And if we have signed on locally through our local board to Common Core by some official means, I urge you to take a second look. Those of you who have a PowerPoint, I want to call your attention to number 17. These are my kids. There is much more to be discovered about Common Core and what is yet to come, much more that can be highlighted in this short time. But I'd like to share these pictures with you. These are my children, Eli and Jordan. All the parents here have pictures of their children innocently blowing their mom a kiss. They start with a clean slate. Public school instills a large part of what will make a child unique. These 2 innocent faces represent all of our children, our grandchildren and great-grandchildren, and they are relying on you to make the right decisions about public education in Tyler County and the state of West Virginia and in the United States. For the board, there's some additional information attached I'd ask you to review and take into consideration. There's growing opposition nationwide from parents in states just like us to Common Core. West Virginia hopefully will soon be on this list. For parents, I will make this presentation available on Facebook so you can check out the additional resources as well. I've attached a partial list of organizations nationwide who oppose Common Core. I've also provided an excerpt from the book The Bluest Eyes, which is available to 11th and 12th graders under the exemplar reading list for Common Core. I've attached some curriculum examples for math through 5th grade. I've attached the article by James Milgram, professional with math at Stanford. I've attached an article by West Virginia delegate Jim Butler that the constitutional advocates have mentioned. And I do think I added a couple more things that I couldn't stick in PowerPoint at the last minute. So, and then there's also a slide that has helpful resources and additional information. There are some great videos on YouTube where we can learn a lot about Common Core for all you parents that are here. And I just ask you to take some sort of action. I mean, these are our kids.